Okay, we're getting ready to talk about the process of digestion and the digestive system. So we're going to look a little bit at the anatomy of the digestive system and talk about how food is actually digested. So we're going to take a look at the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine. So here's a general picture. Actually, it's not general. It's a pretty specific picture of the digestive system. So you might want to stop the video so you can look and see where different things are on this. I would expect you to be able to label a diagram like this. So looking at this diagram, see if you can label this one. So if your esophagus is 1, mouth is 2, stomach is 3, large intestine is 4, small intestine is 5. Esophagus would be here, mouth would be here, stomach is here. Oh, why is it so high? Is here. Small intestine is 5, and then large intestine is 4. Good. So there are 4 stages in food processing, and collectively this could all be called digestion. But the first part is called ingestion, and that's just the food entering your mouth. That is the only place in your body where food can enter, is your mouth, no matter what anybody tells you. Then from the mouth it would travel down the esophagus, and that's where digestion can occur. Well, let me back up a little bit. Digestion just starts in the mouth. So you have 2 types of digestion. You have what's called mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical would be the actual churning of your stomach, the actual chewing that you do with your teeth. Chemical digestion would be the enzymes that help to break the food down. So you have enzymes, you have saliva in your mouth, you have acids and other enzymes in your stomach, and then you have hydrolases in small intestine. Those are ones that catalyze hydrolysis reactions. So that's where the food actually gets broken down. And once it's broken down, it can be absorbed in that small intestine. Water can be absorbed there also, in addition to nutrients. And water is also absorbed in the large intestine. And then once the water is removed from the undigested food, then you have elimination. That would be 4. Okay? So in your mouth, you have teeth that are set up for cutting and tearing, and those would be your incisors. Those would be used to cut and to tear. That would be a U. That would be a U. Okay? And then tear. And then you have your molars, which are used for grinding and chewing. Your tongue also helps to move food along into your throat when you get ready to swallow. And you also have little holes underneath your tongue and on the sides of your mouth where saliva comes in. Now on your tongue is for tasting. That's a sense organ. So you have areas of your tongue for salty, for sour, for bitter, and for sweet. Now your salivary glands are the glands that actually produce this saliva that's used in digestion. And remember on that picture it was below the tongue. So here's the one that's below the tongue, the sublingual gland. Submandibular, that's your jawbone, those along your jawbone. And then parotid gland, those are the ones maybe below your ear, behind your cheek a little bit. Sometimes when your mouth waters or something's really juicy, you bite into some fruit or something, maybe like an orange or something like that, you'll feel the saliva being produced. That's where it's coming from. So in your salivary glands, you have saliva. And in that saliva, there's an enzyme called salivary amylase. That's an enzyme. And we know it's an enzyme because what? Yep, it ends in ASE. We've gone over this over and over and over. And what type of molecule ends in OSE? That's right, sugars. And sugars are also what? Carbohydrates. So this salivary amylase is able to break down amylose into maltose. And that's why, for instance, if you had a cracker in your mouth and you didn't chew it, it would still dissolve. Now, after your mouth comes the esophagus, and the esophagus main purpose is to transfer the food from your mouth to your stomach. And it's able to do this with a process called peristalsis. Peristalsis. And what peristalsis is contraction of the muscles in your esophagus that help to move the food down your throat. That's the reason why you could actually swallow. Say you're standing on your head, you're upside down, you could swallow and the food would still get to your stomach. That's also the reason why sometimes if you swallow something that's too large, maybe like a piece of candy or something you didn't chew well, you might feel that like something is stuck in your chest or something stuck in your throat. But after a while it kind of disappears. And the reason why is because of this peristalsis, and it's actually pushing the food towards your stomach. A bolus, you guys, is just chewed up food. That's all that a bolus is, if you see that on this diagram. So if you want to stop the video, you can go ahead and click on the link, and you should be able to see the peristalsis video. If not, I don't remember if it was one that I have that's linked or if I have one that is on my computer. If not, I can put it on the SkyDrive for you. Okay, so once it goes from the esophagus, it goes past what are called sphincter muscles. There's one in both openings to the stomach, and these sphincter muscles are the reason why food doesn't come back up. Okay, now sometimes in people where the sphincter muscle is weak, they might have what's called acid reflux. Babies can have this a lot. They usually have like an immature sphincter muscle, and that's why they can spit up. In your stomach, you also have hydrochloric acid, okay, and that helps to kill bacteria and protect your stomach. Well, not protect your stomach. Your stomach has a certain lining that the hydrochloric acid does not act upon, and that's why it doesn't eat up your stomach. But if you've ever thrown up or kind of thrown up, you have that burning sensation, and that's from the hydrochloric acid. One of the enzymes in your stomach is called pepsin. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But pepsin is for protein, helps to digest protein. Now, as I said earlier, your stomach has muscular walls, and that aids in some of that that mechanical digestion, along with the hydrochloric acid and the other enzymes that are in there aid with the chemical digestion. So here's a pyloric sphincter muscle right here, okay, and that's what stops it from going into your intestine too soon before it's digested enough. So if your stomach could no longer produce acid, how do you think that would affect your digestion? Certain things wouldn't be broken down enough, would they? And then they would get eliminated. So you might end up with a bad case of diarrhea, maybe? Okay. So let's see if we can label this diagram. On the top left here is the liver. Next, that little green thing there is called the gallbladder, which I have not talked about yet. This over here is large intestine. Top right over here is the stomach. And you do have to know these by heart. And then in here is going to be your small intestine. Good. Now, once the food passes through your stomach, it enters the small intestine, where it is continued to be digested, and now it's going to be able to be absorbed once it gets broken down. Now, in your intestine, you have three main parts: the duodenum, which is that first part. Remember, there was that sphincter muscle there. Oh, that was my battery. Okay. And then you have what's called the jejunum and the ileum. Okay, the ileum is the last part before you go into the large intestine. Now, on your small intestine, Remember when we did the little activity where you looked at the length of your intestine, and that was about 4 times your height. And also, it's folded up. That's how it fits into your body. And there's also little folds inside of your small intestine. So these folds in the small intestine help to increase the surface area. Increase the surface area. So if you look inside your small intestine, you have what are called villi. These are folds inside the folds. And if you notice, running along them, there's a vessel inside each one of these. Look, there's a blood vessel. It's a blue one and a red one. So one of them is bringing nutrients, not nutrients, but blood with oxygen and blood without oxygen there. So you have little capillaries in there. And that's how the nutrients get to the other parts of your body. So on this villi, there are also what are called microvilli. And those in turn, that's where the actual absorption takes place. And it goes through these epithelial cells to get to the blood capillaries. So it says identify 3 features of the small intestine that increase the surface area. Hopefully you said the small intestine, the villi, and the microvilli. Now what happens to nutrients that are absorbed through the walls of the villi? Well, as I said earlier, they get into the blood capillaries, right? And then that's how they get to other parts of the body. Now you also have what's called the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. Now even though these organs are not, or rather food does not pass through these organs, they're very important in digestion, among other things, but they are important for digestion. So your liver produces bile, and the gallbladder stores the bile. Now the bile is important in fat digestion, and then the pancreas produces enzymes that are going to be used for fat and for proteins. And if you look at this picture here, you have the gallbladder. Remember, it stored the bile. And there's what's called a bile duct. That's this tube. And that's where it goes into the duodenum. And then the pancreas, over here's the pancreas. Remember, it has a whole bunch of different kind of enzymes. Those are able to go there into the duodenum for like the final part of the breaking down or the digestion process. Now what does bile do? Basically it emulsifies the fat. Emulsifies the fat. It makes it into little droplets or little circles. If you ever took, say you have oil and water and you shake it, well, those fats will separate, but they clump up into little balls, and that allows the enzymes to act on them. And what's the monomer for fats? It's going to be fatty acids. So here, you probably should stop the video here or on your PowerPoint, but you will need to know all of these enzymes and what they do. So the ones that come from the pancreas are these 3 here: amylase, trypsin, and lipase. So the ones that come from the pancreas are very important because what? They break down starch, which are carbs, they break down protein, and they break down fat. So all 3 of those macromolecules can get broken down there. Don't mistake pepsin for peptidase, even though they both work on proteins. Okay, remember the pepsin I told you was in your stomach. Okay. So what exactly do these digestive enzymes do? They perform hydrolysis. Okay, hydro means what? Water, right? And lysis means to what? Break apart, right? So they break apart these polymers into monomers, and they produce a little bit of water in the as one of the products. So here on this first one here, we have a protein being broken down. The second one, we have hydrolase breaking down amylase, right? So amylase is what? Right, that's a carbohydrate. And then we have lipase, and remember lipid? What was that? Yes, that was a fat. Okay, after absorption and all this breaking down occurs, some of your undigested food will go into the large intestine. So it enters the large intestine right here. This is also where the appendix would be. They're not showing it in this picture, but that's where the appendix would be. Now, the food doesn't actually travel through the appendix. The appendix is just kind of there on the side. But what happens is the appendix will collect bacteria and things like that, and that's how it gets infected. And then that's what's called appendicitis. Remember, inflammation, itis? Okay, so the undigested food will travel up the colon, ascending, it goes up, then across the transverse colon, and then down the descending colon until it gets to the rectum, and that's where it will exit. Now it says individuals who've had part or even all of their stomachs removed can survive if they are fed pre-digested food. Do you think the same individual could survive without a small intestine? Go ahead and answer this. One thing you need to think about is what's the function of the small intestine? What does it do? And will a person still survive if it's not able to do that? So in class we'll watch this short video. It's just a review of what I just talked about as far as the digestion process. You might want to take notes on it. Some things that happen in the digestive system, one of them are ulcers. And this is where the lining of, it could be, usually it's around the stomach area, stomach, or maybe the duodenum, the first part of the intestine, or sometimes you might have a little erosion in the esophagus. But this right here is a picture of an ulcer, and it can be caused by excess hydrochloric acid. It can be caused by a bacteria. Helicobacter pylori, that's the name of a common bacteria that can cause ulcers. And the treatment for that usually is antibiotics to kill the bacteria if it's caused by that, and or they can give you medicine to decrease the acid production in your stomach to give your stomach time to heal. Here's another picture of that Helicobacter, and it's kind of eating some of the mucus layer of the stomach. Now remember that mucus layer was immune, or rather it's not affected by the hydrochloric acid, but obviously if the layer's not there, then you can form an ulcer. Some other digestive system disorders is when you have diarrhea, and that's when there's too much water in your bowel. And constipation is when there's not enough water. Okay? So go ahead and answer this question. See if you can. You can check with me in class if you're not there for the lecture. And then also this, you can check with me on this one also to see if you have filled in the concept map correctly. Okay, and we'll probably look at this in class also. So you need to see me for this one also. And that is the end of this one.